24. You are not crazy. You are not alone. You know, there were a few people in my life who created a pattern interrupt in my story with my family. One of them, I babysat her kids. She got to know our family, and pretty soon it wasn't just babysitting once in a while. When her husband and she went on a date, she hired me to come be her nanny on weekends. She picked me up on Friday after school and take me back to school on Monday. She worked with me with my homework. She showed me to be crafty, what a glue gun was. Like, she really showed up in my life. She had a brand new baby, and I was the only other person he would settle with. So I got to hold this little guy, Vance, for weeks and weeks, months. Even when he was sick, he loved being in my arms. And I began to get this pattern interrupt about who I was, that look at that baby. That's an innocent thing. I was innocent once. And I really began to cultivate that courtship with my innocence at that moment. And when I had my own kids, I continued to court my own innocence again. And I just think of, you know, how that relationship shifted the trajectory of my life. Susie Thornburg was such a gift to me. And then my girlfriend Paula and her mom was studying to become a psychologist, and they were looking for volunteers to provide hours for new therapists who need to, intern basically under a supervisor. And they were looking for young teenagers. And so she asked if I would do it. My mom signed a release that allowed me to go. She was never again happy that she'd given permission for what was about to happen. But it was a pattern interrupt, right? I got to this therapist's office, and he just started asking me some base questions about my childhood and my family structure. And within about 15 minutes of me just spilling the beans on our family, he was like, I think your whole family should be in therapy. What you're describing is yes, I think your whole family should be in therapy. And now looking back, having then gone on later to have 15 years of therapy, I know exactly the internal, like, oh my God, this family system is edgy. Maybe not in that moment abusive, but right at the edge of really, and I wasn't even telling him the whole truth, right? And I'd gotten myself into a little bit of trouble once before when I was 4.5 years old taking swimming lessons, and I flunked them. Bear in mind, I had a younger brother and two older brothers, 1, 2, 3, 4 years apart in that span, and they all passed, but I did not. And he said it wasn't because Edie couldn't swim. She swam fine. It's that one of the passing criteria is you have to be able to hold your breath and stay underwater. And I couldn't hold my breath and stay underwater. And my mom was like, what? Why, what? And he said, well, truthfully, she couldn't stop talking long enough to hold her breath to stay underwater. See? It was a bug then, but now it's a feature. This trajectory shift. Hearing somebody say, you're not crazy, you're not alone. That therapist, even though my parents hit the roof when I got home, like, what? We're not going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with our family. I mean, the gaslighting was on high gear. And we don't talk about our problems. I heard the lecture on keeping family secrets. Anybody else grow up with that? keeping the family secrets, keeping our shame locked in a black box. And, like the minute you come around, Ada, you are like opening Pandora's box right and left. I got therapists checking in. I got parents checking in. So I got pretty beat down in that time frame, my early teens, where I was trying to find my voice when I was being choked by projection and shame and fear that my parents, secret of all secret, that they were not very conscious, would come out. Like we've been afraid to be found out our whole lives. Like we think we're supposed to know all the answers when we get here. We think we're supposed to have figured it all out by now, right? Man, we're just getting started. We are just beginning to engage with our higher states of consciousness, our collaborative consciousness, to reach solutions that have no ego attachment, that have science and magic baked into them. This place that we're going to, that we're already in. We really are. It's right here. It's now. It's just the lens of perception and the imagination. How big can we get with this idea that we are collectively God? To change the trajectory of this moment wouldn't take much. Like, I'm not looking for a total liftoff out of fear and shame, but we could begin to break that downward draft that wants to keep us in this shame-based reality just by showing up in community and looking at each other and saying, you're not crazy and you're not alone. And to open ourselves up to this beautiful place of a shameless healing bridge that moves us through the 5 movements of invitation, initiation, inquiry, integration, and inspiration. I guess I just loved David Rico's 5 A's, so I had to have 5 I's. My friend Jen is like, it's all I. When does it become we? Well, it becomes we in that 5th movement, that shift from self-actualization to self-transcendence, from expression to devotion. Like we've been all about finding our way to expression. Who am I without fear as my governor on existence? Who am I when I trust that my attributes are features and not bugs? Who am I when I can laugh at myself and my innocence, just trying to figure all this out? Who am I? Like that's a big chunk of this work. That's the 90%. But we can do that work, right? The next 10% is that place where we have both the heaviest lift of our story and the greatest trust of our expansion. And the two are not mutually exclusive. They are together. They are this movement into the new story. So it's no surprise to me that we're meeting this moment of ascension, this moment of collective self-awareness with an equal measure of heaviness. Like there is a weightiness to this shame that, yeah, I've been feeling that in my body my whole life. Putting on 100 pounds, I'm not that tall. That's a lot of extra shame to be carrying for the collective. I'm free of my personal shame, and now I need some help with the collective shame. I need the world to not look at obesity as anything more or less than any other manifestation of separation of self. I want to spend a moment on addiction because we've all got them, just that some of them are rewarded by society and some are shamed. But ultimately, they're both an expression, whatever end of the spectrum. And like I've said in previous, I had both ends. I had the obesity shame, the deprivation shame that I had to go so deep into that deprivation core. And I'll talk about that one too. And then the super high functioning. Ooh, look at me. I get rewarded for this level of addiction of showing up and being a super mom and taking everything on and, being completely disassociated from my life. Just the same as somebody who's addicted to drugs or sex or porn or shopping. But over here we call it, conspicuous consumption and materialism and how much stuff do we need? The problem is we're struggling with this idea of enoughness, and it comes back to that question number 4: do I love myself enough? Wow, brackets on that word, enough, to heal. If not, why not? I have to go study my enough, my relationship with enough. Oh, that was an interesting inquiry, to go into the depths of enoughness and then arrive not just at peace with enoughness, but appreciation for me-noughness. Like, I'm enough. Wow, look at, I'm not just enough. I'm not just showing up. I am enough to be here, to fully consent to the human experience, I'm enough to go all in on me. Oh, well, that makes sense. But we can't get there on our own. It takes community. It takes everybody showing up every day with better questions for what's in the moment. I always think when I was a little girl, Grandma, it's another trajectory shifting moment, right? Darkness at home, but Grandma, she every time she could get me for a week or two, she kept me safe. And when I got my driver's license, Grandma didn't drive, so I was her chauffeur everywhere. And Grandma, she taught me some big things about who I was through her lens compared to what I was learning at home. So there's Grandma and her enoughness. She really showed me what enough can look like when it's met with gratitude. Whether we meet that in ourselves or we meet that in each other. And so Grandma would say, let's go see if we can make some people smile today. Let's go see if we can be enough to bring a smile to somebody else's face. And so I walked out the door every day because of my grandma, thinking, I'm just gonna, if I do nothing else today, it's enough that I made somebody smile. Right? We are here to solve for X. X is love. And when I was 8 years old and 9 years old, that was the X of the moment, was to help people smile, to bring joy, to bring, I see you. You're not alone and you're not crazy. To any other human that would be receptive to it. And every once in a while we'd get these faces, and Grandma and I would keep track. We'd go to the mall and she'd go, oh, that one didn't give you a smile. And I said, that's okay. He still got my smile, right? It's not about how other people respond. It's never about how other people respond. It's only about how you consciously respond to your life. Yeah. Invitation, initiation, inquiry, integration, inspiration. I'm working on the content for those. It's working me. Just, that saying, the best way to learn something is to teach it. You guys will be the first ones that I'm teaching it to. So I'm having to go deep into learning it. And I feel like this shingles thing, this physical, nerve-ending, conscious conversation that I'm in right now is another layer of physical initiation. And so I can't teach it if I can't map it. So stay tuned. The Shameless Healing Bridge is coming to life through all of you. For my sister, excuse me, oh, chew. I chew. For my sister out there who's isolating and afraid to be too much in the world, I would say you're just enough for this world. And we'll be enough together to help each other get through this. May it be so.